Erica back on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel, and today I am again going to use the Effortless Artistry Paper collection. But I'm not sure we're actually going to make a card today. However, I thought I'd just show you a couple of things that could be helpful or useful or fun. So I've got, so this is the one that I colored, and I thought what I might do is just show you a couple of things on how to, if you wanted to add a few little details, but you're not quite sure about where to add details, or if you want to change a color, etc., etc. So I have actually pre-colored a couple. So these are actually cut out, and then I have added more red, and then I've added yellow on this one. So you can see that they change color quite kind of, okay, I'm not going to go as far as saying drastic, but you can see that there is quite a sort of a color difference. I'm just going to make sure you see here properly, like so. So my idea for today was to show you basically how I have done this. And it takes very, very few Copics actually. So to do this, I have only used 4. And although I can't remember the exact markers I used to color this one, I'm fairly sure that one of these 2 greens, YG67 or YG17, were in the mix. And for the pink reddish, we're going to make them redder. So we're going to add a bit of R89 and a bit of R39. If you don't have either one of these, but you have something very similar in shades and colors, just use those and have a bit of fun, practice and play, because you never know what will come out of it. But what are we going to do first here? We're going to start with our R39, which is our lighter shade of red. So if you, for instance, have R37 and R39, you can always use those. But we are going to start with our lightest shade, and we are going to, in the same kind of manner that I've colored these, we're going to do the flicking techniques. So we're going to just add a little bit, and you want to use a quite light hand so you get those fine strokes. And I like to go quite far down so that the color goes over the entire image. And that's just one of my preferences when it comes to coloring. I think whatever you feel works for you is what you should stick to for sure. So don't let anybody else tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I think with a lot of skills, you kind of work out what works for you and what makes, what gets you the best result. So there, yeah. Welcome to my TED Talk. So we are just simply going to go around all of these and add detail on pretty much like all of the petals. Actually, I think we're going to do all of the petals. So I don't know why I said pretty much all of the petals. We're going to do all of the petals. And what I like to do, again, when I color, when I use the flicking technique, is just a really, really light hand. But here at the bottom, let's see if we can maybe zoom in a little bit. Right here. So along the bottom, I'll show you on this big petal here. I like, this is my preference, I like getting the entire bottom kind of covered. So no matter where the flick ends, it's always going to cover the bottom bit here. So we're going to go and place the nib and then flick, place and flick, place and flick, place and flick, and so on and so on. And then if you want really, really, really fine ones where you go a little bit higher up, again, light movement, and you just kind of try to drag that top bit. So this takes a little bit of practice to get that really, really fine result. And sometimes I don't hit the paper. So you just have to go over that bit again. But this takes a little bit of practice and concentration. So if I muddle my word, it's because I'm concentrating. So at least that's what I'm going with. So we're going to place and flick, place and flick, place and flick. And for me, I like well, actually, I tend to go between liking a really, really blended look to this sort of flicky, very detailed look. And it completely depends on my mood. But if I wanted a really blended look, I would pick one of these beautiful ones, like this one. I think this is either Brenda or Lunon, and it's just beautifully blended. I mean, the colors just go in together so well, but you still get some detail. And then, of course, this no line coloring by Argita is just amazing. Like, oh goodness, so stunning. So like I said, I think it depends on what you're looking for your card, and also don't be hard on yourself when it comes to coloring, because it is a skill. It takes practice, and I have been coloring using Copics for right, so we're gonna do matte. I'm not great at matte. I think I got my first few Copics in it was either 2014 or maybe 2015, so quite a while ago. And I mean, I do all right in some stuff, but there's always something to learn, and you know, you can always better your skills. So coloring is one of those things where people think, you know, you're an adult and you color. Why? Because it's fun, okay? At least that's what I'm going with. So yeah, it's definitely something that requires practice and patience. And I'm not always like very good with the patience. Not gonna lie, sometimes, you know, patience don't come easy to me, but you know, something again, maybe I need to practice at being patient. So, right, I'm just gonna check to see if you can actually still see me. There we go. Okay. And I'm just gonna quickly finish these off, and then we're going to move on to our next color. Right, so now that we've done all of these with our first red, we are going to move on to our darker. So we are going to, again, we're going to do exactly the same thing as we did with the R37, but we're going to go slightly less high, slightly lower on the coloring. Oh, okay. The super duper great explanation as always from me. Thank you for still sticking with me. So I'm gonna show you again just on the biggest petal, and then I'll show you on some of the smaller ones just what I mean. So we're gonna take our nib and we're gonna place it, and we're gonna flick it, and place and flick, place and flick, and place and flick, and go not quite as high, except for around the petal. And this, I feel, just helps bring in that kind of depth and detail to your petals as well. So like so. And then like with the smaller areas, it's, you know, it's basically the same thing, but you might find that you like covering just a little bit, or you might like doing the entire thing. So I thought I'd just show you here a couple. So here you can see I've added in almost the entire petal there, and there I left a little bit, and you can leave it or you can fill it in depending on your preference. You can, this also comes down to where you want to place your flowers. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually fill this in, because I do like it better when with the darker colors. I just feel like it makes everything kind of pop, and it gives that 3D illusion really. And then when I finished here, what I tend to do is go down towards the end as well, and just making sure that it's all really, really well colored, so that it's properly covered, the paper. Because that also sometimes, you know, just going over the same color with an once or twice more just helps adding that depth. So I mean, you can already see the difference. So here it's already kind of helped a little bit by adding that R37 and then adding that R39, 89 on top. It's just really helped bring in the kind of the detail and the depth of the flower. So here, don't be afraid of using a darker color. I know it can be scary, but it can make such a difference. So give it a try and see what you think. I'm gonna color the rest of these in a bit of a hyperlapse so we can then get on with the rest of the coloring, because we still have the leaves left to do and another coloring as well. Right, so here we have our finished or colored, the tulips anyway. So you can see here, I've gone a little bit heavier with the R37 here, so that led to, this is less kind of looking a little bit more pinkish, and these are a little bit more kind of deep red. So that is, you know, depending on what you prefer, you just choose your colors accordingly. But I thought I would just also quickly show you like with the greens. So it's relatively easy to kind of see where you need to add greens here, because you can literally see like the strokes here. But this is also something, if you're wanting to learn how to color, this is something you can kind of use as a guide, especially if you like the flicking technique, like I'm quite fond of. So the sort of the premise is that you start with a light color, and then you gradually go darker and darker. And this works for both petals and leaves and whatever you might be coloring. So we are going to start with this. So this is YG17. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do exactly the same as we've been doing with the petals. We're going to take our marker and we're going to, with light flicks, kind of go down onto this area here. Now, you can choose to either not go over or into the light, or you can actually drag into the light if you want. It adds a slightly different color so that you get kind of a bit of a different look. And then, of course, if you feel like this is actually too yellow for you, you can always add in like a YG05, for instance, and it just adds a little bit more green to cover that yellow. But like, as I said, premise is the same. We're going to just kind of start from the tip of the leaf, and we're going to flick downwards. And this is, or inwards towards the leaf rather. And then we're going to go to the bottom, and we're going to kind of flick upwards and meet those flicks as well. So here again, if you feel like these leaves are too yellow, and they might very well be for your taste, you know, I take no offense. They are, you know, this is just how I colored these at this time. So what we are doing here is just kind of dragging those colors inwards, and then we're going to take our darker. So this is YG67. This is actually one of my favorite greens for leaves. It's a very natural green. I like it. I like it a lot. So then again, we're going to start at the top here, and we're going to just flick a little bit. And when you add your darker color, something that I would say is just start little and build up, rather than kind of go in and think that you're going to add lots and lots. Because sometimes it just needs a little bit just for that kind of extra depth and definition. So you see here, I hardly colored anything at all. And you can see just by adding those little bits there, all of a sudden this leaf has got so much more depth and definitions. And it really can be just those tiny little details, like having a slightly darker shade, that would just bring in that depth for your coloring. And it's a simple thing to do, but I really understand that it can seem quite scary, because I, for the longest time, did not like adding darker colors, because I thought no, it will just kind of like, it will dull the coloring. But when you find the right combinations, it will do the opposite. It will actually highlight and intensify your coloring. So that's something to kind of bear in mind. But then also, you know, if you want to practice this sort of coloring as well, it's always a good idea to sit down and do that type of coloring when you're not working on a project. So you just sit down, color an image, and, you know, obviously do your best. And then what you can do, and this is something that's really great to see your progress, is that you color the same image, but maybe like a month apart in between coloring. And then you will see your progress. And this, I think, is really important, because it's very easy to forget how far you've come if you don't actually see the results or the difference. It's just something that kind of, it just slips into the back of your mind. It's the same like when, say, when you're growing your hair, or if you are tanning, or if you're trying to lose or gain weight, because you're in it all the time. It's just something that you get used to. And then it's not until you compare that you see the difference. So I think it's really important, if you are looking to improve your coloring skills, sitting down and coloring the same image is a great way to do that. By you then also practice in between on different color images or different types of images, and then you sit down with that sort of test image, if you like, and you color it once a month, and then you compare your results. It doesn't have to be the same colors. It doesn't have to be the same kind of, you know, it doesn't have to be, what I was going to say, it doesn't have to be the same colors. It doesn't have to be the same style. It's just sit down and practice and just see what you like. Because also it's important to remember that as card makers or artists, depending on how you want to label yourself, we always evolve. So sometimes you can kind of then look back and you can see, this is where my style evolved towards this way instead of that way. So just something to kind of bear in mind. But I am going to continue to color these, and I'm going to put this into a time lapse so that we are not here all day. And then I thought as well, what I will do is just show you quickly how to sort of change the color of the tulips just by adding in that yellow. And it is super, super simple, but I'm here, so I might as well show you. But for now, I'm gonna speed this up and finish off the tulip coloring. So you will see me here going back and forth with a couple of greens just to, you know, get the level of details that I want. So another thing I want you to remember as well is when you're coloring is that just because you feel like you're finished with a color doesn't mean that you can't go back in and add more if that is what you feel in need. So always trust your instinct and go with it. Right, so I thought I might use this gorgeous no-line coloring flower instead to kind of get that orangey, peachy look. So again, super, super simple. I'm just going to use two yellows, so Y11 and Y17. And what we're going to do, I'm going to put that away first, actually. And we are going to go over pretty much, so the whole petal of the flower, we're going to go over with yellow. So this time, no flicking, just get that covered, or get that flower covered. The only thing I would be mindful of is to stay within the lines. Here is where we're going to kind of flick a little bit again. So we're going to, let me see if I need to zoom in. Maybe we'll zoom in a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we're going to take our Y17, and this, I'm only repeating the numbers in case you're actually using Copics. So we're going to go along the outside on one, like so, and then we're going to flick it gently up a little bit like that, and then along the top there, and just kind of going down a little bit. So you don't want to go all the way to the top. It's just to kind of add a little bit of a contrast and a shape, but without messing with the coloring too much. So we're just basically changing the color rather than doing any real coloring, really, if that makes sense. So maybe a little bit right there at the top. And then on the big one here, I'm going to, again, just kind of go along the top. And you might think, oh, harsh, very harsh line. But don't worry. What we're going to do is we're going to flick upwards very gently to kind of bring that peachy yellowness down. And then again, we're going to do the same on all of these petals. So a little bit of a shape at the outside of the petal. And then, so the big ones are obviously easier to color than the small ones. Here, we're just going to add some flicks. And then on the big one here, the outside, and then a few just going upwards a little bit like that, and a little bit right here on this one, like so. And then we're going to move down. We're going to do this little one. So a little bit of a line there. And here you can also do a little bit upwards. And then we're going to flick, 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 flick. And do this little one here. So with these colors, I mean, if you don't like yellow and orange things, then, you know, try maybe, I don't know if purple would work. Seeing as this pink, it might work really, really well. If you want to go make them even pinker, you know, you just try to add some colors, you know, that will add some contrast, and not just sort of mix the colors. Instead of I'm using contrast, but that's not the right word. Complement. So choose a color that complements. So when it comes to this kind of coloring, you want the contrast between the light and the dark, but you still want them to kind of be cohesive colors. So we don't want like yellow and purple. We want pink to red. If you think it's almost like an ombre, but without it being blended. So here with this no line coloring image, I feel like it's probably, you get a softer look if you have a complementary color. So something that really kind of, you can almost blend in, because you want it to still look like no line coloring. You just want maybe a slightly different color, that's all. So here we're going to just do this last little bit. And as I said, I'm not going to add anything to the leaves. I think they are perfect just as they are. Okay, maybe we need to soften this out just a tiny, tiny bit, like so. And okay. And I think we're done. Okay, so that is how you can take your EAP and just add a little bit of color. So let me just show you the originals of, so this is the original. And here it is with adding just these two for the yellow, so Y17 and Y11. And then I used YG17 and YG67 for the leaves. And I used the same greens for the pinkish or fuchsia one. But I added R37 and R89. So I did also go a little bit sort of heavier with the green here. And I went over a second time just to really kind of bring in that color depth. And then the, oh, there we go. So the original of the no line coloring is this, and you can see it's still, you still get that beautiful coloring that Arjita did, but just with a different color. So here's how you can change up your EAPs, or even use them as a guide on how to get this kind of coloring yourself. So I think we might actually finish off here without finishing a card. But if you think I should finish a card, I can always use these and put them together in a reel for the Instagram page. I would love to hear what you think about this and if you have tried this. But that is it from me for today. I would love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit subscribe and that thumbs up button. And I will see you very, very soon again for another video. And please do leave me a comment and tell me what you think about this. See you soon again.